Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. The U.S. Senate passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, and that's raised inflation jitters. Also concerns about interest rates, although the Fed said that no rates would be raised. When they do raise rates, it's usually raise, so that would mean that capital would move away from the equity markets, as usual, especially in technology stocks, which we're looking at a bit right now. On the other hand, capital is set to enter the markets based on the reopening of global economies related to the pandemic. Meanwhile, effective vaccines abound, and the world gears up for drug repurposing as a more effective weapon against infectious diseases, backed by trillions of dollars. Under themes and events, sesaminol was observed to treat Parkinson's disease. A basket was generated based on sesaminol, and we're still analyzing the results. We looked at the synthetic fuels basket as well, considering the news related to hydrogen and, of course, everything that's happening with EV and battery technology today. And then SPAC baskets. We're doing an analysis of those. Some of us are within our trading group. On the corp side, we've got a new org chart and a scientific advisory board that we're establishing, and we'll be inviting a few academics to that board. We'll talk about that in just a bit. On the HR side, we've got new hires coming in on the engineering side, and on the legal side, we are in good hands and in good shape. On the engineering, QA, product, and ops side, you'll note that we've added QA here. QA is extremely important for a variety of reasons related to curation, precision, accuracy. But usually when people think of quality assurance, QA, in a technology company, they think of fixing bugs and inconsistencies, showstoppers, integration, regression testing, maybe solving for speed. But when you engage in NLP, NLU, data science, AI, ML, you're looking at other metrics, such as relevance when it comes to recommendation and discovery systems or clustering, or accuracy and precision, and of course, human in the loop, curation. We'll also be augmenting time series data sets. This is a big problem in deep learning and neural nets in general. They just don't work well at all when it comes to stock market data, when it comes to time series data of any kind. So we'll showcase how NLP can be used to augment these time series data sets. So on the engineering side, that's what we're working on, and we'll be including that in a kit. On the data engineering side, we've still got pipeline work we're focusing on there. On the customers, partners, and collaborators side, we are we're taking a careful look at the relationships that we have with our large customers today. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because each one of these customers can result in hundreds or thousands of customers for us, as they represent revenue distribution points for us for our data sets. And the dialogue that we have going with these customers is a little more complex than what we usually update the company on. We do want to boil things down and not overload any calls with details that are irrelevant or details that might be material. With S&P Global, we are on 3 tracks. The first track would be related to datasets and showcasing datasets, along with the revenue generation associated with those datasets, sharing that revenue with S&P Global, and having the datasets showcased on their marketplace site, in addition to showcasing datasets to internal groups at S&P. And this was a recommendation that did not come from the current group. or the group that we had been talking to over the last few months. This came from a new group, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. This relates to the third track that we're on with S&P, and that's related to the crypto index. So again, the three tracks, data sets and the showcasing and the revenue associated, along with using S&P's data to construct, create, and design those data sets. The second would be the internal S&P groups, providing data sets so that they can extract patterns, engage in predictions, and so forth inside S&P. And then the third track would be the crypto index that S&P is releasing to the public. We are dealing with 5 point people at S&P Global, not just one. We've got person A, B, C, and then we've got person D and E. And person D and E represent a different group that's working with us on the crypto indexing side, but also working on us, or on getting our data sets and our offerings to fit within other organizations inside S&P, because they like what we do. The person D that we're working with here is the financial services innovation leader and the cryptocurrencies and digital securities and alternative data sets specialist at S&P. And the second person, person E, is the managing director and global head of innovation and strategy for S&P Dow Jones Indices and S&P Dow Jones Industrial, DJI. So with this group, we've been interacting with them over the course of the last week. We had a call with them and a few email exchanges related to documentation. They love what we do, and this was an update we provided to our team internally. They're determining ways to work with us on a higher level beyond just the market intelligence group. They are also working on a case-by-case basis with cryptos that they intend to include in their index. We also talked about motif investing. Motif investing was one of the first companies to introduce thematic investing to the world. And I think this may have happened about 12 years ago or so. And motif investing, they brought up motif investing because they thought it was a great idea. And we talked about why motif investing failed. And the reason was for the same reason that Pandora Music almost failed. And that was coverage. They simply could not, at motif investing, they could not automate what they were doing. They could not automatically or dynamically produce thematic baskets in real time based on global events. So they were spun down. I think they were acquired. But we talked about the value of real-time, dynamically generated thematic baskets. And that's a need that is spread throughout S&P Global as an organization. That's what they mentioned. We talked about institutional and retail customers and data engineering pipelines and signals, because they've got a lot of retail customers, not just enterprise or institutional customers. But they have individuals that sign up for their services, and they've also got products that are used by individuals based on seat licensing and based on providing similar to Bloomberg terminals and providing data sources for individual traders or prop desks or whatever. So we're going to be talking about integration with some of their products. We also they asked for documentation for the thematic baskets, and they mentioned they'd like to find, okay, that's something I already mentioned. I'm reading from notes here that they'd like to find a good fit for providing data sets. Okay, got that already. So next, they are reviewing use cases. So they were sent the generating alpha from information arbitrage in the financial markets with NLP datasets. They were sent the dexamethasone announcement, could have made hedge funds a fortune article. They were sent the predicting future correlations between equities article and generating and visualizing alpha with VectorSpaceAI datasets and Canvas, the Elastic article. So they'll be reviewing the case studies specifically related to Bristol Myers Squibb's acquisition of Celgene, the $74 billion acquisition, where Celgene rose by 31.8%, and a basket rose as well. They'll also be looking at the coronavirus basket and the returns, and the GameStop thematic basket and its returns. They're also looking at what we do outside of the financial industry. As we talked about GNC, we also talked about CERN. And finally, we talked about the thematic basket backtester, where we provided them with a link that they were able to generate any number of baskets, any kind of baskets they want, and be able to see 1 year's historical performance. It's also important to note that S&P produces the S&P 500, and that is an index that contains stocks that are weighted by market cap and qualified to be in the S&P 500. S&P vets these companies to make sure that they will exist in the S&P 500 for quite some time, and that they will provide the returns that the S&P 500 has provided over the years. When you look at the S&P 500, an index for traditional stocks, you also note interesting characteristics of that index that are set to carry over to a S&P crypto index. And that would be that funds are required to buy the S&P 500. They're also required to mirror. Many are required to mirror the S&P 500. And this would mean buying the components or the stocks in the S&P 500. So you can do a search for mirror the S&P 500. And this is an advantage that we're looking at when it comes to working with S&P. Next, we're still under customers, partners, and collaborators, so we'll move on to the life sciences, biosciences efforts we're engaged in here. Space biosciences in particular. We've been talking with Mina Bissell at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and she's one of the 5 recipients of the 2020 Canada Gairdner International Awards. And this is an annual honor given to scientists who've contributed to transformative human health research. And I'll just read something about it here. Bissell was recognized for helping to shift the paradigm in the understanding of cancer by showing that both malignant and normal cells are engaged in continuous two-way interaction with their microenvironment within the body. Her pioneering work on this phenomenon, called dynamic reciprocity, revealed that tumor cells grown in cultures or otherwise isolated in a lab do not behave the same way they would in a patient. These relate to particles called exosomes. These are nanoparticles, and they travel from cell to cell. And this is something that when you look at 2 entities or 2 objects or 2 genes, proteins, or 2 exomes or 2 cells that communicate with one another or share a relationship with one another, you can create a correlation matrix data set to analyze and extract a relationship network between these exomes to make new discoveries related to drug repurposing, drug discovery in general. So this is what we'll be working on related to our biosciences and space biosciences effort. And you'll also note that the Gairdner Award for Medicine is a precursor to the Nobel Prize in Medicine. We'll go ahead and post a few links to the channel on that. This also relates to DNA repair. There is a paper titled Tissue Infiltrating Macrophages Mediate an Exome-Based Metabolic Reprogramming Upon DNA Damage. This is a paper from Nature. So Mina Bissell will also be joining our scientific advisory board. Moving on to GNC, that's in progress. CloudQuant, in progress. Sales and marketing, we're going to be turbocharging sales and marketing with the S&P pipeline. So sales and marketing is taking a break now. Might add a holocobrator to it eventually. Questions from the trader base. Did the meeting with S&P crypto index happen? Okay, we just answered that. We can move on. Well, actually, there was another part to that question. What are the next steps for VXV to get listed? And I can be a little more specific about that. The next steps would include them reviewing the documentation that we gave them and passing checks, which is what they described. That was the word they used, and we'll see. We'll see what they say. We do believe that we are qualified. We believe that we have what it takes in terms of the value that we're offering to S&P's customers and the markets that they serve. And they're looking for quality cryptos, not scams, not pump and dumps. Next question, are there any other partnerships or groups interested in VXV besides the ones that have already been disclosed to the public? Yes, there are. We just talked about them related to Space Biosciences and Mina Bissell. We also have dataset designs, dataset requests being sent to us on a regular basis. These are from individuals, small and large groups. And these are queued as we have our priority large customers ahead of us here. The next question is, do you plan to create a roadmap for this year? I understand that Vector Space is tied to big companies, but maybe a roadmap for the products would be good. What do you think? Well, we've answered this question throughout our history, and we've always held the stance that our PRs provide the roadmap along with our conference calls. You'll also find that many companies do not provide a public roadmap, especially mature companies. As markets shift and retail and consumer demands shift to institutional enterprise and then back again, as pandemics happen and as black swan events occur, and of course as new opportunities arise, which we're required to take advantage of, as we have a fiduciary responsibility to our stakeholders and shareholders to do that. Another reason relates to Apple and imitating best of breed by maintaining a competitive edge and maintaining a roadmap that is well guarded. So again, you can look to our PRs and our conference calls for our roadmap and updated living roadmap. On the exchanges side, we do not have any word from any of the exchanges we're in dialogue with right now. We've got one, Kraken, waiting on information from us, but Kraken will not receive information from us until we receive information from S&P Global. On the IR, PR, and Marcom side. Well, let me go back to the exchanges side. This also goes for any other exchange right now. We understand that our relationship with S&P Global will open up doors to most any exchanges we'd like. Next, IR, PR, and Marcom. Again, what is a 24/7, 365 PR but an inclusion into the S&P crypto index? And of course, followed by others. We've got CloudQuant geared up for March. We've got nothing from New Data geared up, and that's because we do have 3 tracks and 5 people we're dealing with at S&P Global right now. And they represent thousands of billion-dollar customers. Fortune 1000. On the strategy side, our last section here, We'll be conducting a SPAC analysis, and this is for the purpose of analyzing capital flow from the traditional markets into the crypto markets. And then, of course, SPAC baskets. And then we mentioned our time series augmentation. You just won't find neural networks running well on open, high, low, closed data. Historically, they've done very poorly. And this is another reason that you don't find Google's AI branch, division, DeepMind, developing algorithms for the stock market. They mainly focus on DL. Now, we're going to be highlighting the solutions that NLU can provide. DL systems, pure DL systems, when it comes to understanding how to find patterns in market data or time series data. And if you'd like to know more about exomes and our nanoparticle strategy with Lawrence Berkeley Lab, Mina Bissell, and her work, you can look up what are exomes exactly. There's a great article in Biomed Central, and there's also a wonderful video that talks about exomes, and we'll go ahead and post that on the channel. This has been a pre-recorded call. Thank you for joining. We'll see you online. Bye-bye.